Good morning. My name is Jayson Coil. I'm one of the operations section chiefs for Southwest Area Team 1. And today is July 17th, and this is your operational update for the Laguna fire. Today is really July 17th, and I apologize that yesterday I said it was July 17th. The fire is still being reported at 15,714 acres. Containment has increased to 44%. And there are 291 personnel assigned to the incident. We did not get an infrared flight last night because of the weather primarily. When there's even a small amount of clouds, the moisture in the air absorbs the infrared signature off of the fire, and so the mapping is ineffective. So for that reason, we do not have updated acreage. When the crews get out there today and we'll do some aerial reconnaissance, we'll be able to see where the fire's moved. But it will be an incomplete picture, unlike what the infrared provides us. So before I go to the map, there's a couple things I wanted to talk about that are going to become very relevant in the next couple days. So I'll talk about some of the actions we have planned in Division Mike and then in Division Alpha. And I'll talk about how those actions need to be phased for us to be successful. And one of the things that constrains us is that the time to implement these actions sometimes exceeds the amount of time we have to know with certainty that the actions are necessary. So what I mean by that is that if it takes us 10 hours to accomplish something, but by the time we wait to find out if that thing needs to be done, like a firing operation or something else, and we only have 6 hours available, we're going to be ineffective. So that means we have to make decisions with incomplete information. And that means that in a complex environment, when you make decisions with incomplete information, sometimes you're wrong. We accept that while also working to try to increase our decision quality as much as we can. And so as I go around to the map here in a moment, then I'll talk about the different areas where we're working, what we have planned, and how we believe we can be most effective, and what we're going to do if that isn't effective. All right, so we'll start over here on the northwest side of the fire in the Whiskey Alpha break. So as I said yesterday, the line's completed all the way out to the edge of some private property here in the northwest corner of the fire. And then the secondary line that I discussed yesterday that goes from DP23 all the way up to DP8 to drop point 18 to the blue 18 right there, and then along the Galena Mountain Road, is going to be completed today. So that part will be completed today. They're continuing to improve the already existing line that the Forest Service, the local unit, had put in for some of their broadcast burns that they've done earlier, and making sure that's good to go. But that is our secondary containment feature in Division Alpha. We do not intend to burn out this large box. We intend to keep the fire primarily within the Galena River drainage, or ideally within this ridge system right here, which I'll talk about in a minute. So this is our primary plan. It seems weird that the primary isn't the closest, but it's because it has a high probability of success. So our primary plan is along the Galena River and then down to this hand line and road system going to drop point 20. Our secondary plan is this large box right here. And then our alternate plan that we will try to take opportunities to exploit is along this dozer line to this cliff band, and then around back over to the drainage. So we reduce the potential that fire gets up on this mesa, creates a longer duration incident, and adds more acres. This becomes the first part where I'm going to talk about the phasing and timing. So this dozer line that's put in, they're going to continue a little bit more dozer line up to, I don't know if you see this very well, it's kind of hard, but a quarter mile or so, and then some hand line to tie it back into this rock bluffs. Then, depending on conditions today, they may introduce fire along the right side of that dozer line, going up here and tying it back into the rock bluffs. The reason is that this fire continues to move despite all the buckets of water we put on it with the heavy helicopters. And so we want to, once that line's in place, we want to burn off of that line to increase the likelihood that it holds. We have limited number of resources, especially those type 1 crews. So being able to get this complete and burned out lessens the likelihood that we're going to have to use this larger line, which is going to require more resources to implement effectively and increases the acreage of the fire. As we move along in Division Alpha towards the Division Alpha Mike break, the Galena Ranch here, which we put a bigger label on here more so I could find it than y'all. But that area right in there, they're continuing to make improvements to reduce the potential that the H braces and the corners on the fences get burned. All of the structure protection around the actual buildings has been completed, and they will continue to monitor the fire as it comes down off of this slope here towards the drainage bottom to see if they need to go up and grab some of it. So go up and suppress some small areas, or if it's down low enough that if they do burnouts off of the line they have in place, that they can prevent it from spotting across. And so, it's backing down slow. What can happen though is it's backing down across this whole thing is that you get some outflow winds from a thunderstorm that's parked to the south, and then it pushes it down quickly. So that's why when it gets close enough that we know we need to take action, we want to take action, because as I said at the beginning of this before I came to the map, if we wait until we're certain that there's going to be outflow winds that are going to push the fire to the north, we won't have enough time to implement our actions to be effective. All right, so going around over into Division Mike. I talked a little bit about it yesterday, and it's more of the same plan today. This whole fire's edge, all the way down to right about here, was active last night, or was active yesterday, beg your pardon. It was continuing to push down towards the bottom of the La Presa drainage, slowly though. And it is way too steep to put people on. So there's some rock features that you can see in the shading that have the potential of preventing the fire from moving further down here. But right here, this is the crux of it, is that if we make the assumption that these rock bands are going to hold everywhere, and we wait until the fire gets down to those rock bands, and if a tree rolls off, if something else happens that causes fire to get down below here, it's at the bottom of the other slope. And that means that if we can't catch it, which the only way we'll be able to catch it is with aircraft, which may or may not work, but if we don't, it's going to run up to the other side quickly. It's going to cause high intensity fire that causes more damage, and then you're going to basically have fire set up on both sides of this drainage and all of this unburned fuel in what is a bowl. That will likely mean that whole bowl then would burn with very high intensity, and it would increase the erosion and increase the potential for impact downstream. So they're working on a firing plan. This would be aerial ignition if we did it. And I know that is not something that folks, after everything that's happened, want to hear, but there's no other way to introduce fire on this other slope than to do it with either unmanned aircraft or with manned aircraft. So if that became necessary, then what we would want to do is we want to introduce fire along the top edge of this bowl as it came down over here and keep them even, so that as it filled in, it would be low intensity fire, and that would prevent a lot of the consequences to areas downstream. So that plan is ongoing. I can tell you the primary plan here is to use either water dropping aircraft or ignitions, if we can do some very small ignitions adjacent to the areas where we don't think the fire will get across to increase the likelihood that this rock band holds. The secondary plan is going to be to look at using aerial ignition to keep this fire even across the top if we expect that it's going to get down here in the bottom, to prevent that head fire from running up. Neither one of those plans has a high probability of success by itself, and there's a lot of uncertainty in both those plans. But given the location of the fire on the landscape and the conditions, then that's what we have in front of us. So we're continuing to do more scouting to make sure we can refine those plans. We want it to rain, obviously. That would be ideal, but that's nothing that we're going to incorporate into one of our plans, but we will be very thankful if it does happen, especially down here on this southeast corner. The rest of the fire is in patrol status, and the resources are continuing to do the patrol and then do some of the line repair that is necessary to make sure that when we leave here or when the rains do come, that the amount of negative post-fire effects, erosion primarily, is minimized to the extent possible. So I just wanted to kind of close with one summary about everything I said about the uncertainty. So if our course of action, which is what we call the sequence of events that we need to implement to achieve a desired outcome, like, keep the fire from burning at high severity through that bowl. If our course of action requires 12 hours to implement and we don't decide until hour 10, then we didn't make a bad decision, we made a meaningless one. So waiting in those situations isn't just a bad decision, but it's waiting until your decision has no value, and we can't do that. So hopefully that makes sense, and I'm sure if it doesn't, you'll tell me in the comments. And that concludes your operational briefing for July 17th. Thank you.